Hello, everybody, and welcome to my channel. Here is your weekly forecast, which is going to be for Friday, October 15th, all the way through Thursday, October 21st. And we have really big week. So I'm excited to talk about everything this week because we certainly have been going through it and we're kind of in this like thick fog right now. It feels like we're kind of just at a standstill, even though we feel like there's something on the precipice, right? So if you've never met me before, my name is Yelena Crawford and I am an intuitive astrologer. Welcome to my channel. I do weekly forecasts as well as educational astrological content as well. So if you haven't already subscribed, please, if you feel inclined, then do so. And also, so like I said, we're going to get started with this reading. During the reading today, I'm going to give you guys a rundown of every significant day, at least, of the week ahead. At the end, we're going to be running through just a short, brief run through of the different themes that each sun and rising sign may experience for this full moon in Aries that's coming up. Now, before we begin, just a couple housekeeping items. So I do use the Tropical Western Zodiac with whole sign house system, in case anybody is wondering. I use a mix of traditional Hellenistic as well as modern psychological astrology. Now, I do personal readings as well. So if you are undergoing a major shift, maybe you just want to have your natal chart read, or you want to make sense of what is going on in your life, we can do maybe a year ahead reading or talk about the current energies. Then you can head on over to my website, YelenaCrawford.com, to go ahead and book that. And if you have any questions on what reading to book, or you have any questions for me at all, you can email me at info@YelenaCrawford.com. Now, you can also find my content. I create a lot of graphics and educational content, as well as give little readings and everything over on Instagram. So please give me a follow over there too. I'll pop my handle up on the screen. It is Yelena Crawford Astrology. Other than that, I have a freebie. If you want to head over to my website, tap the freebies tab at the top. I have a journal insert that will guide you in using journal prompts and everything through all 8 lunar phases, which is a really cool addition to your journaling routine and everything like that. So if you are interested in that, it's free. And it will also sign you up for my monthly astrological cosmic guide, which is a newsletter that I'm sending out to give you all the information that you need on the month ahead astrology. And if you want to sign up for that, but you don't want the freebie, just head over to my website. Once again, YelenaCrawford.com, a little pop-up will appear and you'll be able to sign up. All right. Thank you guys for listening to all of that. I know that was quite the mouthful. So let's go ahead. We're going to get right in to the forecast. And I'm going to share my screen with you guys. I have another cute little presentation to share, and we'll go ahead and begin. So like I said, this is for Friday, October 15th, all the way through Thursday of October 21st. So just a couple of the highlights that we have this week. We've got the sun trining Jupiter retrograde. We've also got the sun squaring Pluto. Couple totally different dynamics there from one extreme to the other. And then we've got Jupiter and Mercury finally stationing direct, which will put us at 4 planets now direct and beginning to gain some momentum moving forward, which means that we will begin to gain momentum in all of our lives too. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about that, as well as this big, intense full moon in Aries that we are currently building to. And I had to mention as well that this full moon in Aries is in a T-square with Pluto. So there's a lot happening with the energies of this week. We've got a lot shifting, a lot changing. So let's talk about it. All right. So on Friday, October 15th, exact at 7:46 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we've got the sun in Libra right over here, 22 degrees. And it's making a really nice trine to Jupiter over here in the sign of Aquarius. So what's really interesting about this is that the sun is not very well dignified in the sign of Libra. The sun is in its sign of exaltation, which means it does really well, in Aries, which is the opposite sign. So this is in its fall over here in Libra. And the sun doesn't operate that well. That's our vitality. That's our ability to be aware and conscious of certain circumstances and dynamics that are going on out in the world, right? It is our health, it's our vitality, it's our energy, it's our connection to our own sense of purpose that's kind of going through a purification process. And it's going through a bit of a challenge, as well as these other planets that are present with it, Mars and Mercury. Mars rules over our ability to take action, our motivation, our willpower, our drive. And Mercury is our ability to process information, to communicate. And all of these things are kind of undergoing a detoxification process, if you will. And sometimes, as we know, detoxes, well, initially when we're undergoing it at first, it can be really freaking uncomfortable, right? And it's not always the easiest thing to deal with, but when we emerge out of that and the detox is over, we feel so good. We feel renewed. It's almost like we have a rejuvenated sense of who we are, our health, our purpose, our body, our mind, all of those things. And that's kind of what I see in this process here that we're undergoing. Now, all the difficulties that are brought on by this Mercury retrograde and everything that I talked about in last week's forecast, it's really nice because all of these planets are it's this domino effect of them connecting over with Jupiter. We've even got Mars, which next week we'll talk about, is about to move into this trine with Jupiter. And then eventually, once Mercury stations direct, Mercury is going to hit that trine to Jupiter again too. So it's no matter what these difficulties are that we're experiencing, this intensity that's building up, that we're building up towards, which is going to happen next week, the volcanic eruption at this full moon, right? All these intensities of these planets connecting with Pluto, which is the planet of intensity, the planet of power and control dynamics, power struggles, secrets, intensity in general, manipulation, all of those kinds of things. Jupiter is helping us to be more optimistic. Jupiter is giving us opportunities. Jupiter is helping us to move through this with more ease, with more grace, and also at the same time helping us to learn from these challenging circumstances. So we're not just like, oh man, I'm just getting a beating here. We're actually seeing through what it is that we're moving through. Some of our shadows are coming to the surface with this Plutonian influence as well. We're watching other people go through it where their shadows are coming up. And we're having to work through these things, but we are learning from them. Jupiter is the planet that teaches us, right? It's a teacher. It helps us to see clearly, to understand on a much deeper level the holistic big picture of everything and why it's occurring the way that it is, and helps us to see that with optimism and strength and courage and faith in the future that everything is going to be okay and play out the way that it's supposed to. So this is a really great influence here on Friday and Saturday. I think that this is going to make the energy really, really nice. And it's going to kind of help build us up for what's to come next week, because we've got a lot of intensity that we're going to be moving through beginning on Sunday, right? So basically the sun is gaining back its vitality. And why I say that, even though it's in the sign of Libra, doesn't do very well there, there's a couple of different ways that we can look at rulerships according to Hellenistic astrology. We've got what's called the decans, and each decan is a 10-degree segment of that house where all these planets are. Now, if we're looking to Libra, this third decan where the sun is just now entering is ruled by Jupiter, nonetheless, but Jupiter. Now, we also have a way of looking at breaking the houses down, or that house down even more, into what are called the bounds. And there are 5 different bounds. And Jupiter happens, or the sun happens to be in the bound of Jupiter. So there's so much Jupiterian influence that's going on here that's really helping to build that sun back up, right? Build up that influence, which I really like, especially with the trine over to Jupiter. It's just, there's a lot of really great things going on here. I really do believe that it's helping to encourage us. It's helping to awaken us and a new awareness within us, maybe about some limiting belief systems that we may have had, maybe about just a lot of different dynamics. And I think collectively, there's going to be a lot of information that's brought to the surface that's going to help us take a look at it from a different vantage point, from a different perspective. And it's going to shift a lot of people's personal philosophies about what's going on in the world too. There's a lot of truth that's going to be revealed. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of that, especially once we have these planets stationed direct and things get going and things get moving forward. This is going to be bringing up a deeper understanding, a deeper awareness within us, helping us to become more aware of our own personal limiting belief systems, and really helping to restore our faith, like I said. So I really like this process. And what's nice about this too is that, as you can see the moon over here, the moon, usually wherever the moon is moving throughout the day, it's going to be really indicative of how the mood is going to be these days. So on Friday, and moon is actually going to be in this trine as well. The moon is right here with Jupiter. The moon is going to be really vibing with all of this. So it should be really helping us to kind of feel more positive, more optimistic, and everything too. So this is really, really nice. I like it. All right. So we've got Sunday, October 17th. So I'm just going to skip right through Saturday, and we're going to talk about this big daddy of a transit right here. Now, this Pluto influence has been happening for a while, and it's definitely going to increase as we continue moving on and we hit this Mercury retrograde direct and full moon next week. Pluto is going to be involved in all of this as the storyline plays out. Now, the sun, as you can see right here in the sign of Libra, luckily is still connecting over to Jupiter. It's just not as exact. It's a little bit, it's a waning aspect. It's 2 degrees difference. The sun is going to be connecting over here with Pluto. Now, this isn't as harmonious as an aspect as we were talking about 2 days prior with Jupiter. This is actually a square, which a square can bring a lot of tension, and it can bring certain dynamics that challenge us and require us to make a certain change. Right? And these are happening in cardinal signs, and cardinal signs are all about change. It's all about initiation. It's all about making moves. So I really do think that something could potentially be brought up that requires us to shift. And a lot of these things that are occurring with this Mercury retrograde and everything, these dynamics are all kind of boiling up within a lot of us and within a lot of people that we know and we are, around. We can kind of see this taking place in their lives. And I think that it's going to boil to a head coming towards the full moon next week. Now, I want to read you guys just a little bit from this awesome book, The Archetypal Universe, which talks about archetypal combinations between planets, just to give you some insight. Anybody who's interested in getting this book, if you can see it, it is The Archetypal Universe by Ren Butler. And I really, really love this book. It was a recommendation by one of my astrology teachers. Here's some of what Saturn and Pluto in a challenging combination like this could bring. And I tell you this because there's so many ways that these archetypes of these planets could play out that it's hard for you to relate to it and tie it into what's going on in your life. So maybe this will help you a little bit. The interplay of the ego and shadow. A ruthless and driving nature urges to dominate and control others. A willful flaunting of one's sexual and shadow energies, obsessive self-expression and self-celebration. Now, it could also bring a fiery self-expression or surges of drive and enthusiasm, powerful individualism and force of character. I like this quote. It says, "We have to dare to be ourselves, however frightening or strange that self may prove to be." So even when a lot of these shadow qualities may be coming up to the surface, maybe boiling up to the surface to our conscious awareness for us to take a look at, Pluto is really a planet that wants to transform us, and it's helping us to do that. But, I like that because we have to dare to be ourselves, however frightening or strange that self may prove to be. And we may be coming up against parts of ourselves that we haven't previously been willing to take a look at or may have been suppressing that could have been driving a lot of our behaviors. And that can be hard to look at, right? And I think that this dynamic can be bringing up a lot of that within us, within other people. I also have here strong impulses towards renewal, regeneration, and transformation. But with this process can come pain, can look ugly, can be really, really uncomfortable. It can be a challenging process. It can require a lot of purging because Pluto is a planet that represents the purge, right? That requires, that comes with transformation. Sometimes it requires us to purge out aspects of our old self, aspects of our old life, people, things, places. So it can be really uncomfortable and it can be very cathartic and emotionally driven, right? um, impulses towards self overcoming and self conquest, an open and upfront examination of one's shadow energy. So there's a lot of deep diving about shadow things that are bubbling up to the surface. And not only is this, you guys got to remember too, as above, so below. So not only is this all happening in our personal lives, but we're going to start to see a lot more of this unfolding in the collective with this general narrative that's going on. We're going to see a lot of shadow qualities of our government, a lot of shadow qualities of the structures in the everyday world that are bubbling up to the surface, right? Because Pluto's in Capricorn, and Capricorn represents the structures and the foundations of our society, government, all of those different types of things, corporations, the structures that rule and govern over us collectively. So we're going to see, this is just going to be a continuation. It's going to be really interesting to watch this all unfold once these planets start moving direct. And finally, just one last little point I have here is the ego is not master in its own house, is potentially going to be something that will be a theme that will be brought up. And I think that this is going to be an opportunity for us to become the master of that. And we don't want to get rid of the ego. We just want to have control over it, right? So these are all big themes that are coming up right here. It's really, really interesting as well, because we've got the moon, which is connecting with Neptune right here, which is really bringing a lot of power because it is connecting over here in a sextile to this Pluto dynamic. So a sextile is a really nice and harmonious aspect. And it requires us to take some sort of action or to work with it in some way. Now, the moon connecting with Neptune, it makes us very intuitive. It makes us very aware of our sensations, our bodily sensations, or messages that we get from different realms. It makes us super tapped in, tuned in, and connected in that sense. So I think if we're taking this opportunity to really tune in to what our intuition is trying to tell us, then we're going to have the opportunity to potentially really work with this Plutonian energy and these healing capabilities and working with the shadow aspects of ourselves so that we can heal that. Now, we also have Mercury retrograde over here, which is directly opposite Chiron, the wounded healer. So this could be triggering a lot within us. Chiron is in Aries, which is the sign of us, the individual. It could bring up a lot of wounding within us. It could be triggering us in a lot of ways. And this is all just tied together with our shadow qualities and everything. So there's so much going on here. It could potentially be something pertaining as well to the relationships that we're involved with. So a lot of these triggers could be coming from other people. It's that mirroring dynamic, that face-to-face dynamic of other people that sometimes brings up these things that are a little bit more challenging within us. So these relational dynamics are really, really important to pay attention to right now and to watch what it is that's coming up. Now, I also wanted to say Rick Levine, he had this amazing video that just popped up for me the other day. He's such an awesome astrologer if you're not aware of him. But he was talking about aspects, and he was talking about how a lot of people, they glorify aspects like the trine and the sextile. But really, when we have the trine and the sextile, when a lot of people have a lot of trines and sextiles in their birth chart, what that means is that the energy flows really easily. There's a lot of opportunity. We don't really have to work very hard, and it can bring a lot of laziness and lackadaisical type of behavior. And let me ask you this. Are we growing and expanding and evolving when we have that kind of energy? Not usually, right? So really, when we see these aspects in a chart that are a little bit more difficult, like squares, right? Or oppositions, like we see in this chart where there's a lot of tension and there's a lot of discomfort. These are the aspects right here that we should be kind of excited about, really, not the trines, not the sextiles. And of course we want that. We want things to flow every once in a while with flow and ease. But these are the aspects that help us to grow, that help us to evolve and become better versions of ourselves. So we should really be looking forward to these cycles with Mercury retrograde, making us a little bit more introspective with all of these retrograde planets that are really helping to prepare us for what's to come, making us stronger and helping us to work through some of our own bullshit, right? Because that is ultimately what is going on with a lot of this, which is preparing us for where we're kind of heading. And when we become stronger, we more easily navigate some of these challenges that are kind of getting in a lot of our way right now. We're able to navigate that with a little bit more ease, with a little bit more grace, and help other people that might be struggling, right? So, anyway, sorry, I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit here, but this is really helping us to adjust how we exert our power and our force onto other people. But on the flip side, it could also help you become more aware of maybe where you might take the stance of powerlessness. So maybe people are taking advantage of you in some way, or you're not able to exert yourself in some way. So watch what side of the coin this is playing for you. I know, I've had certain situations. I always like to give stories, but this is playing out for me a lot in the workplace. And we've got a lot of these new people. We're having a lot of staffing issues. We're short staffed at the restaurant that I work at. And we're having to take on a lot of new people. And these dynamics just keep changing where we have to train all these new people. And it's just really, really frustrating because things are never seem to be running smoothly. We are so busy. We can't keep up with the business that we're getting. But then we have all these new people. And I'm watching my frustrations with training these new people, and they don't seem to be taking it seriously. And it's like these power and control struggle dynamics that are going on. And it's motivating me to do better, not try to exert my power over other people. And when I do, yes, it's frustrating and it's uncomfortable and it's like, feels like a setback. Like, have I learned anything? You know what I mean? But it's also motivating me to do better next time. So I can feel the growing pains and the challenges and the struggles that I'm moving through, and a lot of my shadow qualities of having to be in control and having to have things go a certain way are all coming up for me to take a look at them. So I urge you to kind of take a peek at how this is affecting you in your daily life. Maybe take a look at where that Capricorn or the Libra area of your chart are. Maybe that'll give you some insight as to where this could potentially be playing out for you. Collectively, also, I hate to keep going on and on, but I think this is important collectively with what's going on with the narrative. I don't want to say too much about like keywords or anything, but I urge you to take a deeper look at things in general and start questioning them, kind of discovering what your truth is outside of what anybody else is saying to you. And no matter what anybody else's opinion is, because I think that there's a lot of combat back and forth in interpersonal relationships where we're maybe afraid to step into our own power and exert like what our belief systems are, because we're afraid of what other people might think, because there's so much conflict going on collectively right now, but not being afraid to stand in our truth. And there's this like interplay going on right now, especially with the full moon that's coming up, where we need to try to figure out how to stand in our truth while still maintaining this balance and harmony in our everyday dynamics with other people, which is really, really challenging right now. But that is definitely what's going on. But see the deeper motivations in what's going on. Maybe trying to see, like, why would there be maybe a different narrative than what I was thinking was going on playing out? What could the motivations be behind why people are exerting their force over us collectively right now? And I'm just going to leave it at that and be very vague, but I'll let you kind of take your mind where that goes for you. Like, maybe it's not what you're seeing in the media. Maybe it's not what the news is telling you. Maybe there's a bigger reason why this could be beneficial. Like, I'll just give you an example. Why they're pushing something so much in the news, why they're wanting people to do something so much and gaslighting us potentially, because Pluto is all about manipulation, gaslighting, control. And there's a lot of gaslighting going on right now about why they want everybody to get a certain something, right? And maybe just trying to take a deeper look. And I'm not trying to push my belief systems. This is totally just to get people thinking outside of the box of why that could be, other than because they care about our health. I think I just beat that to death. So we're going to go ahead, clear this screen, and move on to the next. And of course, you guys, if you have any questions about anything that I'm talking about right now, if you want to share your insight, please leave it in the comments box below so we can all interact and talk about this. If you guys are not hearing or seeing something clearly, or if you have questions, please ask. I love to teach and answer and get into dialogue about these types of things. So This is a really interesting day. Monday, October 18th, we got a lot of energy beginning to move forward, but first it comes to a big screeching halt, a standstill. We've got two planets that are stationing to move direct. So there may potentially be some intensity this day. We'll have to see, because when these planets appear to be coming to a standstill, they become really, really strong in their energy. This is Jupiter and Mercury that are going to be stationing direct here. We're going to be having a lot of things moving forward, a lot of momentum that's going to be gaining. So if you feel like you're stuck in certain areas of life, you feel like things haven't been able to progress, you're not getting the answers that you want, you're not able to kind of sign contracts, move things forward, whatever it might be, or you're having miscommunications with people, you're having a lot of tech issues, dealing with a lot of shadow work, a lot of relationship drama and transformation going on. A lot of these dynamics are going to start to move forward. A lot of clarity is going to be coming. There's going to be a lot of answers that we could potentially be getting, and we can start to move things forward in our lives. But this momentum really won't start until the end of October, definitely beginning of November. So yes, it's exciting that we're starting to see things forward, but ultimately we won't really start to see this momentum and this forward moving progress until we gain a little bit of traction here in the coming weeks. But at least we have this optimism, and I can feel the optimism in my life with this Jupiter influence. I feel like there's a dark message here, but there's still a lot of optimism with the entire thing as well, right? So we definitely have that Jupiterian influence. I can feel it. Sure, you guys can definitely feel it. Jupiter is all about expansion. Like I said earlier, it's all about our own personal belief systems. It's about gaining knowledge and insight. It's about travel. It also affects travel. It's about growth and expansion. I think I already said that. And it's about truth. So Jupiter has been working with us in a very internal level. So we may have seen the external expansion start to slow down a little bit. We could have potentially even seen some traveling circumstances slow down a little bit, or maybe even a reversal where you were able to travel. There weren't as many restrictions, blah, 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 because usually retrograde planets bring reversals. And I think with Saturn starting to station, Saturn stationed direct on the 10th of this month, and Jupiter is about to station, we're already starting to see these restrictions coming back up in the travel industry, with Southwest Airlines canceling all of these flights. I said last week in last week's video, that extended forecast that I did, that I think we're going to start to see a lot of restriction coming back. And I think with, Saturn and Jupiter in the sign of Aquarius, which rules over humanity, the collective, us as a group of people, it also rules over rebellion and revolution. So I think that there's going to be a lot of people starting to fight back, really being able to kind of see and have a different perspective about what is really going on, all of the power that's being enforced over us and these restrictions that are being had. And I think that people are going to be able to start to see this a little bit differently. We're going to have a lot of people with a different awareness, and a lot of these things are going to start shifting and changing. Of course, we're still going to have the opposite polarity, but I do think a lot of people are going to start waking up to really what the hell is going on if they're not already keen to it or aware of it. So this is going to be really interesting, you guys. We're going to see a lot of forward momentum. We're going to see a lot of reversals, a lot of shifts, and a lot of changes in many areas of life. So anyways, moving on to Wednesday, October 20th. So exactly at 10:56 a.m., that's Eastern Daylight Time, we have a full moon that we have just been building up towards. I mean, it has been like a just pressurized build, really. It's happening in a fire sign. We've got a lot of fire energy that's going on here. We've got Venus in the South Node in the sign of Sagittarius. We've got this lunation happening in the sign of Aries. So as you can see here, we've got, it's the sun opposite the moon when you have a full moon, okay? So we've got this, but as you can see, we've also got Mars tied in with this dynamic, which is a very fiery energy in itself. And Chiron is still opposite Mercury. So we've got this Mercury retrograde dynamic tied in with this as well. Now, just to bring to your focus too, we've got, this is happening at 27 degrees, which means that Pluto over here is squaring both of these dynamics, which is called a T-square. Okay, so we've got a very pressurized dynamic that's really requiring us to transform some of the structures and the foundations of our lives and who we are as a person, how we relate to other people, how we stand in our own sense of personal power, how we exert our power and force over other people, and how we allow other people to dominate us, allow us to take our sense of personal power back, or maybe come into balance with a healthier sense of personal power. And this will play out different for everybody. Now, a full moon is a culmination point of some major themes that are associated with the Aries area of your chart. And I'm going to go through at the end, like I said, and tell you guys what area of your chart Aries is. So we won't do like a full, forecast or anything like that for each sign, but at least you guys can know and you can start to maybe be introspective and contemplate on how this could potentially be affecting you. Now, one way I like to look at this is that this is the culmination, the ending point. Maybe we're releasing something or ending something, or we can celebrate how far we've come with regards to something that was started, that was seeded at the new moon in Aries on April 11th of this year. Okay, so whatever that was, we started around that time frame, we can start to see that maybe we're reaping the benefits or the rewards, or maybe we're seeing how far we've come. Now, a full moon is it's an intensity, it's a peak point of some energy that's been building, right? And it's also the energy that's been building since the new moon at the beginning of this month, the new moon that took place in the sign of Libra, which Mars also had a very heavy influence in. So there's been a lot of intensity. There's been a lot of aggression, frustration, a lot of things that have been building. There's been a lot of motivation that we potentially may have not been able to take action on, a lot of drive that could have potentially been stifled. So this could have really been playing out in a lot of ways, even just a competitive force within us, maybe that could have been faced with some type of opposition in some way throughout our journey through this month. Aries is the sign of determination, of willpower, of force. It's the sign associated with our ambition and our competitive drive, our ability to assert ourselves and be an individual and stand in our truth. It's the sign of individuation. So, like I said, with this full moon energy and with Mars being involved here, we've got Aries, the sign of the individual. We've got Libra, which is relational dynamics. So throughout this whole month, relational dynamics, one-to-one relationships with other people has been a significant theme, as well as topics of what is right, what is fair, what is just. So we want to watch out definitely during this full moon, especially with the intensities running high, for arguments, the butting of heads, disagreements, confrontation, differing viewpoints, those kinds of things. There could also be decisions at this time that really come to a head where we make a decision to leave something behind, to leave someone or something behind, disconnect from something, whether that be a job, whether that be a relationship, whether that be our belief systems about something, or certain aspects of ourselves that are no longer working for us, or our place of living, or whatever it might be. It could potentially be a time period when it's the straw that broke the camel's back. Something with this T-square dynamic is bubbling up to the surface. It's gaining in intensity, and this is the release point of that. So this could potentially be a very, very intense day for a lot of us, especially those of us who have placements in the cardinal signs. So if you have placements, I would say anywhere from probably 25 to 29 degrees of the cardinal signs, this is going to be happening very, very intensely for you. You will have to let me know in the comments box below if that's you, and if you have any stories that you'd be willing to share, because it really does help us to learn how these transits are playing out in all of our lives. Now, we could be facing some type of crisis of some sort that's going to require us to take action, shift, change, pivot, make some type of adjustment, having to do with our own sense of personal ambition and how that could potentially involve other people, requiring us to maybe refocus or re-strategize our own personal beliefs about what it is that we're doing, maybe our own personal beliefs about our self-confidence. And if we have what it takes to get where it is we want to go, that could definitely be coming up too. Aries is a sign that rules over confidence. So we could be coming up against some type of roadblock that's kind of impeding that. But as we know, the sun, which is rules over our sense of purpose, meaning, and self-confidence, is kind of going through a purification process. So hang in there, you guys, if this is you and you resonate with that. We're having to find maybe a sense of balance in terms of our self-assertion and our dynamics within relationship with other people. That's another way this could be showing up. With this Chiron involvement, it could be wounding that's associated with seeing ourselves and our accomplishments through the minds of others. So if we are not where we thought we should be right now, or things are not playing out with what it is that we're doing in some way, shape, or form, and maybe we're having a low sense of self-confidence, or we are being triggered in some way or having insecurities, and we're trying to put our insecurities and see them through the eyes of other people, like the way that they could potentially be judging us. We need to stop doing that immediately and focus back on ourselves. Not worry about what anybody else is thinking, anybody else's outside perspective, and focus back on you, right? So if that's you, bring yourself back to balance in that aspect. So overall, you guys, I think that this is a really, really interesting lunation that has a lot of potential for transformation if we are willing to work with these energies. So if you are undergoing anything, just try to be as thankful as possible, no matter how challenging the circumstances or situation, and take Rick Levine's viewpoint that if we didn't have squares, we would never become better versions of ourselves. We would never get put back on track with where it is we're supposed to be heading in life. We would never really learn from our mistakes and really grow in the ways in which we're meant to. So I'm going to try to take a little bit of that advice too, even though it's kind of challenging, a little bit difficult. All right. So moving on from here, here's a couple of the houses that you should maybe check out in your chart and the glyphs that you want to look for. So like I said before, maybe you can look up what the meaning of certain houses are, but I would look to see what houses Capricorn, Aries, and Libra represent in your chart, because that is the T-square dynamic that the full moon is going to bring into focus. So all of those topics will be involved potentially. All right, so now we're going to do just a quick run through of all 12 zodiac signs. And this will be, I'm going to be putting the sun at the horizon and doing this a bit differently. So first, predominantly check for your sun sign, and secondarily, you can check for your rising. It's a little bit backwards from how I usually do it. All right, starting with Aries. So Aries, this full moon is going to be affecting your first house. This will be a release, ending, or a culmination of something relative to who you are as a person, maybe your looks, your body, your physical body, and how you take care of it. It could have a lot to do with who you are, how you see the world, and how the world views you. So that's why I say identity, maybe some big change in your personality, or actually your physical appearance of some sort, or a release of some cycle having to do with something like that. Taurus, this full moon will be ending, releasing, or bringing to a head something that you've been working on, or some type of fruition relative to the 12th house. The 12th house represents topics of self-undoing, of the subconscious. It's a little bit more of a challenging house, where some of our behaviors and shadow qualities are maybe brought up to the surface for us to examine. So there could have been a lot of shadow work going on here, or you could potentially have been letting something go, releasing something, and that is coming to a finality right now. Maybe you've been spending a lot of time in solitude, seclusion, isolation, quiet contemplation, working on your spirituality or something, and somehow that's being brought to focus, or even working behind the scenes on something that is ending, or you're reaping the benefits of that. Gemini, this is going to be illuminating your 11th house. So the full moon is going to be releasing something, bringing something to a close. You might be letting something go. Relative to friendships or maybe group involvement or organizations that you could potentially be involved with. It also could be maybe celebrating some type of group involvement or project of maybe social justice or some type of humanitarian pursuit that you may have been involved with, is going to be brought to the forefront. Then we've got Cancer. Cancer, this full moon will be releasing something, letting something go, bringing something to a peak or fruition where you might be reaping the benefits of something you've been working hard on in your area of career, public sector. Maybe you're receiving some type of accolades or acknowledgement from an authority figure or something like that. Or maybe you are letting a job go or ending a career, moving away from something. So that is where this will be affecting you. Moving on to Leo. So Leo, this will be a full moon in your ninth house, which will be an illumination, letting go, release, and ending of something, or maybe something coming to its peak where you are celebrating and reaping the benefits of something relative to maybe a program of higher learning or study that you've been taking on, or maybe you've been doing some type of teaching or something of some sort. Maybe you've been writing or trying to publish something. This could also potentially have to do with travel, an affiliation with foreign cultures or foreign affairs in some way. And it can also represent legalities like lawsuits or maybe some type of legal something that we're involved with. So maybe that is something that's wrapping up or ending for you as well. Moving on to Virgo. So Virgo, this full moon is going to be highlighting your eighth house. So there's going to be some type of culmination, ending, release, letting go, or celebration of hard work and a job well done. Regarding your eighth house, this is topics associated with debts, taxes, other people's money, finances, joint finances. So maybe those topics are being brought up to the focus. Maybe you got done paying a debt or something like that. This also has a lot to do with like our psychological inner depths, traumas, different conditioning that we accumulated from previous life experiences that we have to really work with. It can bring up a lot of our own fears and power and control dynamics that we have with other people. And sometimes those can be financial struggles and things. It can also represent mortgages and loans. So maybe you've applied for something and you're just now starting to get that. So these are just a couple ways that that could play out for you. Moving on to Libra. Libra, this will be highlighting your seventh house. So the full moon will be bringing something to fruition, or it will be helping you to end something and wrap something up and release it as it pertains to your relationships with other people. This will be one-to-one partnerships and dynamics, business partnerships, marriage partnerships, anybody that you have a contract or negotiation with. So contracts and negotiations in general could be tied up or ending in some way, shape, or form. And this can also be like legal things that we have with another person, legal battles or disputes or something like that. So that's how I see this playing out for you. Moving on to Scorpio. Scorpio, this will be highlighting your sixth house. So this full moon will be ending something, helping you to release or let something go, or maybe even bringing something up to the forefront and really illuminating and highlighting some type of crisis point, or maybe a celebration of a job well done relative to your work. Your daily work environment, something relative to your coworkers or maybe your employees or something like that. This could also be something relative to your health, your physical health, maybe your diet or your nutrition in some way, or physical activity like exercise could also come to the forefront. And it also is the house that rules over small pets. Moving on to Sagittarius. Sagittarius, this full moon is going to be happening in your fifth house. So the fifth house, this could bring topics that are tied in with maybe some type of release, some type of ending, a culmination where it's bringing something to a head, where maybe even there's a crisis or you're celebrating really good hard work and a job well done relative to something tied in with your children of some sort. So maybe it's actually your children that are ending something or something that's going on with them in particular. This could also have to do with dating and romance. And sex and things like that. It's also the house of joy. the house of fun, the things that bring us joy, and our hobbies and creative pursuits as well. Okay, moving on to Capricorn. Capricorn, this full moon is going to highlight your fourth house. And your fourth house, there's going to be maybe some endings, culmination, a letting go of something, something coming to a peak. Maybe you are reaping the benefits of some hard work and something that you seeded back in April relative to your home, your place of living. Maybe your property, maybe some type of renovation that you've been doing, or maybe you bought some land or something like that, redecorating project, or maybe you've been trying to sell a home or you want to move or something like that. And something like that, it could potentially be coming to the forefront. Maybe there's even some family affairs or family dynamics that are being brought up and being finalized or something like that you're having to take a look at as well. Moving on to Aquarius. Aquarius, this full moon is going to be illuminating your third house. Now, this could be endings, finality, releasing and letting something go, or something being finished. Or it could also represent like a crisis point of some sort, or reaping the benefits of something that you seeded back in April. And this will bring in the topics for you. The third house is kind of vast, so bear with me here. It is the house of communication and the mind and our mental processes. It can also rule over things like writing, communicating through different mediums and things like that, like building of a skill set. So sometimes like taking a course or a certification. So maybe you're completing something like that, or business dealings and money markets and e-commerce. Any type of daily transaction that we're doing. So maybe selling something or something. It's also relative to your community and your neighbors and your everyday environment, siblings, relatives. It also rules over transportation. Like I said, the third house is so vast, vehicles, transportation, all of those kinds of things. So try to figure out how that affects you, because it'll be very different for everybody. And finally, we've got Pisces. Pisces, this full moon is going to be taking place in your second house. So maybe some type of ending or culmination or release or letting go of some type of resource, or way that you bring in income. Maybe something that you own or possess is being finalized. Maybe some type of investment that you have been involved with, or something pertaining to your own personal sense of self-worth, how you value yourself and how you value the things that you own and that you hold near and dear to you. So maybe your viewpoint on what it is that you value is really changing in some way, shape, or form. But this is really bringing up financial areas for you. And I will let you kind of explore how that might be affecting you. But that is all, you guys. That is the energy of this week. I will be back to give you guys an extended forecast for next week. So keep an eye out for that. That will probably be next Friday. And I would highly suggest subscribing to my channel if you haven't already done so. I've got more educational content and a really exciting plan to keep my content rolling this winter. So if you want to be a part of that, make sure to also tap the little bell icon next to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of my videos. And if you did benefit, please, if you could be so inclined, to tap that like button below. It really helps the channel. And leave me a comment. I love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much once again. If you are interested in a personal reading with me, all the information is in the description box below. Head on over to my website to book, YelenaCrawford.com. Happy full moon in Aries, everybody. We are really going to see some momentum starting to build. I wish you guys the very best. I love you guys so much. Peace and namaste. Have a great, great week, everyone. Bye.